So the rebuild kit's come today for the Gilera. So just going to bang the main bearings out. There you can see the oil on this side. This is the flywheel side. So this seal would have caused it to run long as well. But anyway, we're going to bang the main bearing out to this side and bang the main bearing out to this side. And that's the two main bearings out now. I'm just going to put these two what come in the kit, and the Koyos, the good ones. I'm just going to put these in the freezer for an hour, and then if an hour's up we'll start rebuilding the bottom end and the top end. And the main bearings have been in now for an hour, so we're going to get these into the casings now. Just heat the casings up, and they're froze, they've shrunk, and when you heat the casings up these holes expand a touch. Just tap them in a little bit easier. And that's the two main bearings in now. Start getting the gearbox and that in now. So I'm going to put the crank seal in first, but I've just been getting that. You can see it there. See on the other video it had a snapped sump bolt. I've just been getting that bolt out there. So we can put a proper sump bolt in now, even though there's one tap and died into the clutch case, which was still alright, but at least put a proper one down if he wants one. But we're going to put that crank seal in now, and the crank. We're working on this side from first. We've got two crank seals. This one with a bigger diameter. The bigger diameter one goes on this side, so we're going to push this in. Then pull the crank through. Just remember the flywheel side's that side of the crank, that casing. So we're going to put this on here. So we're just going to move the inside of that seal with some transmission oil. It'll go to there, so we're going to have to get the crank puller on. Pull this crank through. So now we'll tighten the crank puller to pull this crank in over here, so it's flush with the main bearing. So we're just going to do that now. Just going to keep the conrod up there. That's the crank in. Get the crank splitter off now. Doing it nice and smoothly. I'm going to put the collar in, just pushes in, because we're going to be working on the other side. But this bit of the seal's left open, so stuff could get in there. So anyway, just lube that up. It just pushes in, slots into the seal like that. Fitting the gearbox in now. It goes that way. Make sure they're flush at the top and the bottom. You know you're on the right track if that's flush. But we're going to be putting on that way. That's where the clutch basket goes. If this engine had a kickstart, on, that's for the kickstart idle cog. There's the two circlip marks. That's where the idle cog goes. Let's select the drum. Put the two forks into these two. I've already checked this. So I'll move up and down okay. I've checked the dogs for any way as well, because if them round off, that's how your bike jumps out of gear. If they round off, see it's square, if they round off, it just jumps out of gear like that. So if you ever got a bike and it's jumping out of gear, that's your problem there. They're weird. I'm sure they're called dogs or legs. You might remember from the first video when I stripped it, that was a selector fork, what was in it. Got that one there, which is perfect. We can get the gearbox in now. So you get them two selectors into the grooves. Don't worry about this selector yet. Now that groove in the bottom groove lines up with that nipple and that nipple, and push it into them. Now push it in. This third runner is for this one. And I text the lad about the bike when I found that selector fork with the way on, and he said it was having trouble getting into neutral, so that selector fork must be near neutral. Anyway, we'll get the gearbox in, put this together, and you've got the two runners in the selector drum. Just slot it in. And get your last selector, slip that cover up, push it on there, and get it into the middle runner. Don't need to put the bar in yet. I'm just going to gap it in and then tap all that down now. Now we can just push the bar in. Push everything down. That's everything in, it's all insecure. It's just normally the bearing on the selector drum needs to be banged through. So just tap everything through. That's it there, all nice and smooth. The bearing at the bottom's through. That's all perfect. That's all flush, if you can see. It's all spinning nicely with the three selectors in. I'll just turn the drum now. If you're ever doing this, because a few people have messages and been saying it won't select and they're only turning this, or they're only turning this and trying to select actually. When you turn this, turn these cogs as well. This is the gears. Don't know if you can see there. That's neutral at the top with no point on. Oh, these have got all the points. Neutral. Which sits about there. That's where the one with no point on is. So that's neutral. That'll be first. Can't go anymore. Then we've got first, second. There's the neutral thing, third, fourth, fifth, won't go anymore, and there's the neutral thing there. So the gearbox is alright. When you turn it back, always turn it back so you're working in neutral, so that circle's there. It's best to work in neutral, plus when we're putting this on, it slides straight into that circle. You don't have to clock on, turn and stuff and changing gears. Now we can blue hide them all around the cases. I've already cleaned the cases before the gearbox was in, just because it's kind of hard to get into. So we're going to blue hide them all, then come back in 20 minutes and put the top casing on. I've still got to put the balancer shaft on as well, actually I forgot. It's a balancer shaft. Slides in this side, just drops in the bearing. That's it, it's in. That's it all Hylamard up. Don't forget to Hylamard that part. Gearbox is all working, so we're going to wait 20 minutes, then come back to it. Now it's been 20 minutes. I've oiled in these two holes where the stoppers fit, because the stoppers are in this casing. We'll get this crank seal in. I've already cleaned the other side of the casing while I was waiting. It's from the service. There's the stoppers, there's one. There's other. They all seem to have white stuff in, I don't know what it is. There's that thing. People ask, what's that on the bottom of your engine? Well, that's where it goes, all the way up here. So if that wasn't there, this would just be one block of aluminium. Maybe it's to keep it cool. So cool air will be going into there. Maybe it's a hot air to push hot air out of. I'm not sure. Anyway, get that crank seal in, pull the casing onto this engine. That's the crank seal. We're just going to push it in. Remember to lube around there. That's the crank seal all lubed inside. Just going to slide the top one now. get the crank tool on there and nip the cases together. Just keep an eye on the level. You'll have to keep tapping it in with the mallet. That's the engine pulled down now, but everything's running smoothly. All the gears are selected. That's the case bolts tightened up on this side. Just going to put the steer bracket on now. Put the 3 screws. Put a tiny bit of Loctite onto them. So we'll get that on now. That's just steer bracket on. I'm going to get everything else on this side now. First we'll get this on. So we're going to put this cog on first with a primary drive. First just loop the primary drive woodruff key up, put it in the slot, loop inside this cog, make sure the circle on its face and outways, which is that circle there if you can see it, there, make sure that's facing outways anyway, just slide that on. That's that on. Now we'll put the primary drive on. Loop that up. That's the primary drive on. That spacer in there now. Now put the balance shaft cover on, which is that one. Put the circle there. Make sure that faces outwards. Loop inside it, loop there. Loop inside the woodruff key. It's the little woodruff key. So we'll slide on there. That's it there. So that circle and that circle. That's it, will match up. Now we'll put that on. Get them on. Now we'll get a penny in the bottom to lock this one. And then the penny in the top to lock this primary drive. So we'll just take the top one. And then the top. And then when that's tight and it's in line with the stopper what you've banged off it, you know, that's as tight as it should be. I'll put the penny in the bottom on now. That's the crank tightened up. Now we're going to put the baffler plate in with the 2 screws. That's the baffler plate. I've put a big thread lock on each of the bolts. That's that tightened up. Now we'll get the tension on for the gear selector. And you've got that, the spring. Just check this for straightness. Make sure the top's all round. That just hooks on like that. This bit here just rests down there in the case, and that's the nut with the ledge. I've already put a bit Loctite on it. Just put it on. If we're working in neutral, that circle fits into the circle on there perfect. That's that tightened up. It's on the neutral. Just going to put the new gear shaft seal in. We'll slide the gear shaft in now. Got them 2 parts there. They slide over that black part. And that's the black bar what the 2 selector forks run on. I've already checked this and it's working alright. But make sure you lube it all up. This had all rust on there, I've wire brushed it all down so it was all smooth because it's got a slide through the seal on the other side. So we'll just push it in. That's a bit tight there. That's it. Just got to pop through the seal there on the other end, so that's alright. Just push it on like that. That's it. Should be looking like that. There's the seal on the other end. Now we're going to put the clutch basket on. Put this first push rod in first. That's where the ball bearing's been rubbing on it. So you put in that end. That ball bearing's still going to be rubbing on that. So just change that round because it's just hitting a flat part of the gear shifter there. So push that up, push that in there. Then you've got a little ball bearing. Check that wear. Make sure it's not got a flat edge on, as I've had a few with flat edges. That's all round that, so put grease on that. Push that on that hole. Just put it all the way through. So now we're going to get the clutch basket on. First of all, that washer goes on. It's conical. That shape there when you look at it, that goes on the engine that way, so just lube that up. Push that one on first. This one, just lube it up. Got the basket, just lube in the middle. We've got that washer with the splines in. That goes on next. Just loop it up. Then you've got your inner boss. Put that on. Have that circle at the top. You've got that stopper. Makes it tight when it's in line with the stop what you've banged off it. Not tight enough. But I'm going to put the clutch plates in. But I've got another video of how to put the clutch plates in. So I'll just put the clutch plates in, edit it, just so it keeps the video short. And then we'll go around the other side and get some bits on the other side. That's the plates in. You can see I cannot put on properly, but bang the lock and tab over. I've greased that before, so just put this on now. That circle lines up with that circle. I'll put one nut in as well, just to keep it on. Now we'll get the starter motor in. I'll just keep them bolts in when I took it apart, so I know which one goes where. Just make sure you've got that black rubber seal on. Just pushes in. That screw in there. Put these two for there. It goes over, but I can't put that on yet. So now we're going to put the starter clutch on and all the cogs, the little thin washers. Them two little washers. Put one of them on first. And get this. And that bearing gets no lubrication from the engine, so it's best to put a bit of grease in that way. Then another little one of the fin washers, just lube it up. That slides on there. Now you've got your starter clutch and the bearing, just slides in there, the bearing, and it just fits on there. And you've got that plate. These two screws which fit into the starter motor. That's all the starter motor on and all the cogs and the starter clutch. And on this side we'll pop that front spot seal out now. put new sealing in the bushing as well. This is what I use to get seals out. It's one of the pullers what you pull springs onto exhausts on motorbikes, on motocross bikes. Just hook them behind the seal. So we'll get the new seal in. Just push this in. And you've got the bush, just like that. Just get it right down. The clean side always goes in the engine. That's where that's been sticking out the engine, where the front sprocket's here. So this doesn't touch the seal when you push it in, as long as you push it in from this smooth end, but lube it up. Around the front, and around the middle. It just pushes in. That's that on. And I was going to put the flywheel on. I've just remembered them rollers dropped out the back of it, so I'm going to have to take the back of the flywheel off. But I'll just put the front sprocket on, give it a wipe down. So it's better than having oil everywhere. So we'll just slide the front sprocket on. But actually, tab on. And it goes on that way. That ledge fits over them T4 sticking further out. Just put it on, tight and tight. I haven't put the clutch casing on yet, because to tighten this flywheel up, you put a penny in the primary drive and the clutch basket to lock it, and you can tighten this nut instead of putting something through your con rod and locking it that way, because these nuts are dead tight. It's going to put pressure on your con rod bearing. So once the flywheel's fixed, I'll tighten it up with a penny in there, then we'll get the clutch casing on, the water pump sealing, flywheel and stator that on, and that's that done. So now we're going to have a look at the flywheel, because when I took the flywheel off, that come out the back, and there's 3 of them in, and one of them looked seized. That spring looks like it's got a stopper missing. There's like a little metal stopper on them. Anyway, we'll get the back off. Right, now I'll get these out the slack. That's the screws out. They felt like they were Loctite in. There they are. Factory Loctite, that white colour. White. That's the back. That roll is down. That roll is down. This roll is, it's missing. Just pop the spring out. It's missing one of these. See the metal thing there. It's missing one of those, what goes on the end of the spring. So it's one way I'll get one of those. I'll have a look on Fowler's. I'll just put them there with that. So as I was looking for the stopper for the flywheel for this one, I've got this old flywheel upstairs. Like that seized, look, that doesn't move. That one moves. But that one didn't have a thing in, so I was just going to take the back off. And then when I looked inside, there. There's the spring, there's the roller. Oh, I've already took it out. There's what we need for this flywheel, for this engine. So we're just going to put this into the back there. Just put this into the back of there with that new thing on the spring with the 3 rollers, and then we'll test it all, make sure it's smooth, oil them up, and then we'll put that on the flywheel, take the flywheel on, just put a penny in there to lock this, instead of locking the crank, lock it by this to tighten the nut. Less wear on your con rod bearing. So Got 3 rollers in now with the stoppers on the springs, and they're all good. They're not seized. So we're going to put this on the back of this flywheel down here with some thread lock on the 3 nuts. That's the bolts in with thread lock in. Just going to tighten them up now. So that's the rollers all in now, all moving. Just loop them up. Got the woodruff key. I've looped round here as well before. The woodruff key in. Now that part of the clutch slides over the woodruff key. That groove there. So just going to line it up. That's on. Now put that bush on. Got the crank nut. I think I've seen before. When some people put a bar through there and lock your crank while you're slackening this or tightening this. These are dead tight and it will put loads of pressure on your carnot bearing. Penny. Just put it in between the primary drive and the behind the back of the clutch basket. Just put it in the top. Now we're going to tighten that. Just tighten it up, just keep moving the penny as you're doing it. So the penny locks in the cogs. And that's as tight as it will go. So now we'll do the water pump. And we'll just use the little flat screwdriver, put it in there. We'll have 2 black washers. Here's one of them. Here's the water pump shaft coil. There's the bar what slides through. There's the washer, it's just the same as the one I've just took off. And I'll just slide the shaft out. So we're getting this water seal out. You can see where the water's been mixing with oil. The white. So we'll get this water pump out. Quick check of that. See all the water pump seal out. It just looks like that inside. How do you get it out? You just tap something through this hole here. It bangs the seal out through this hole here. So we get all this gasket off here. Give all these surfaces a clean round here. That which way they go in as well. Normally it's got water side right in there, but these haven't. That's what it looks like on the other side. That's got the deep dish all the way around. That goes in that way like that. That's the water pump seal in. I'm just going to get this black water gasket off around here and then fit the water pump shaft. Just make sure that the pump seals right in. Like even check just before you take it out to see how far it's sticking out, so you know how far to go by it. Because I'll show you what I mean in a minute. But I'm just going to get this black stuff off first. So now I can put the water pump shaft back on. Actually, it's what I was on about before. If that seal's not pushed in enough, and you put your shaft through, and you put your first washer like that, it goes on there. Got your little bar next, which is that, goes through the hole in that. You can see it at the top, that goes through there. If the seal isn't banged through enough, that doesn't fit through, but you just fit that through with that in the centre of it. Just that has to fit over that gap in there. If you can see the square gap on the camera, that fits over that bar. I'll just check all these teeth as well early on for any chips or cracks. Then just line it up and slide it on. That's it, just slid straight on. Then you've got another one of those washers, same as the other one. Push that on. And you've got your circlip. Just get your circlip and get a pair of pliers and just clip it on. That's the water pump on. I've cleaned all around the cases. Cleaned all around the cases on there as well and dried them. Now we can get the gasket and all the case bolts ready. Just slide this on. So that's the gasket on. I normally put on that side, but the two little stoppers is on this side. So I've put the gasket on this side. Now I'm going to slide it on, but don't slide it on all the way. Just leave a gap. So if you leave a gap before you nip the gasket up, just make sure it slides through the gasket alright. You can just see on there what I meant. Just because if you push the case together with the gasket on without the screws in, sometimes the gaskets are off or it moves a bit and you screw straight through your gasket. So it's best to just, like I say, go around, try that one. Yeah, you can see the gasket there. Just make sure the bolt goes through. So that's all the casing bolts in and tightened up. I'm going to put the water pump gasket on. Clean that black off there as well before we put this back on. That's that clean. And just push the water pump casing on now. Push that bolt through again just to make sure it goes through the gasket. Also got to find another 65mm screw for there. There's the one on the casing on this side near the front sprocket arches it out, but there'll be one upstairs. So that's all the casing on. That's the bolt what's been tapped into the clutch casing. I'll probably take that bolt out now and see if a proper DTR some plug fits it, which it should. So I've got the broken screw out. So now I'm going to put the barrel in the head and the piston on. I've cleaned all the piston up. It's a 56.45. It's a Vertex piston as well. Put the little lens there. I bought a new little lens. And the DTR little lens don't fit in that piston. So I'm just going to have to use these little lens. So you lubricate these up and put them into the conrod. Get these centre finer gaskets as well as what will come with the kit. So I'm going to put the Affina gaskets on. So I'm just going to put the Affina base gasket on first. Already cleaned that surface underneath. I'm just going to lube the rings up in the grooves and the piston. But anyway, on these rings they're both exactly the same fatness. If you look at the top of the ring there, you might be able to see it. See it there. Like numbers. Anyway, when you fit them numbers face upwards. So if you were looking down on your piston, you'd be able to read them numbers. And that's all lubed around the ring grooves now, all the way around. Just get the rings fitted. We're using 2-stroke now, oil by the way, for this bearing and the rings and the piston and that. We'll put the top ring in now. There, hard to see. You can just see the letters on the top ring there. There's the bottom ring in. So that goes there with the letters. So you're looking down, you can read the letters. So just put that in now as well. The piston's going in that way. There's the arrow facing forwards. So I've left the circlip in that side. So the circlip's in this side. If your piston's never got an arrow on the front, you don't know which way it goes. These notches for the rings are also at the back of the engine. So we're going to get the pin and push the piston in. So get your pin like that in the piston. This circlip's already in, and just push it through, and you can see through this hole when you're lined up with the little end bearing, and you can just push it straight through. Push again, and we'll get the circlip in there. We'll put the barrel on now. There's the power valve. I've cleaned it all up. That's it was hitting. The valve goes in that way. It sits like that with this square. You see the position of the square there. The square was like that, and then it had the end cap fit on, so this was out of position. So when the power valve's been turning, this has been spinning around, hitting. So that's the power valve filed down now on that side, but it won't even hit it with a 56.5mm piston in it, just because it was in the wrong way around. It's been going back over, hitting on it. Out and put the piston back in the barrel. Goes in 2 parts. Just put the dowels into that one. That side with the square. Push it into this side. Should be looking like that inside. That's fully open there when the valve's like that, when it's all flush. And that's all flush up there, that's fully open. That's that side on. Get the big Allen key. I'll put a tiny little bit Loctite on the end. Just on my last one, the piston was clipping the power valve. I clipped it that much and it slackened this, so I've put Loctite on. So I'm just going to tighten this up, and then when it's tight, it'll just keep spinning. So put something in there to lock the power valve. And this bolt doesn't go in all the way, it sits a couple of mil out. It's not flush with that. Just got to watch in case you over tighten them. That's how it should be. When you turn your key, your power valve goes to there. Does a self clean and it turns. It goes flush like that anyway. On this bike, you see how that square bit there, that had been turned all the way around to that position by mistake by somebody. Then the black cap put on, and look what position the power valve's in there. So when the bike's been starting, the power valve's been going that way and clipping the piston. That's why the marks were on the other end. So see, you move that round all the way back round to what it's meant to be, which is about there. And that's how, and then you put your black cap on, and that'll be sit there. And that's fully open, the black cap goes on. So that's what was wrong with the power valve. I'm just unlubing a bore. I've just noticed that. Blocking that duct off. Lube all the bore with 2-stroke. Lube all the piston as well. And just nip the 2 rings around the little grooves on the back of the piston. That's the barrel on and the piston in. Almost forgot about the little circuit as well, so we'll put that in. So now just tighten the 4 bottom cylinder bolts. Tighten that one, then this one, then this one, then this one, till they're all tightened up. So that's the 4 bolts on. Don't forget to put your clutch arm for your clutch cable. Don't forget to put that on. You're rocking the piston so it's still good. Right, we'll get the cylinder head on now. This is a Fina head gasket. Don't see much difference. Anyway, you can see on there it is up. So up faces upwards. gasket on. So now I can put the head on. I've cleaned it all up. It's marks off damage of where piston's been banging up and down with smashed rings on top. To do that on that flat surface. I've cleaned all around there. This was leaking. So when I get this off, test the thermostat as well. And put a new gasket on there. I don't even know if it's a gasket on, but we'll get this off now anyway. Just glad it's Allen keys and not screws. That's the screws slack. Nearly slack. Thermostat, I've got the kettle boiling to test that. Got a ring in there as well. So we'll just clean all this surface before we put the new gasket on. Wait for the kettle to boil. Take all that off there as well. So we'll clean all that up, ready for the new gasket. I've tested the thermostat and it opens and closes in boiling water. Just got that gasket to put on. I'm going to put that top bit onto there. That's the cap back on with the new gasket on now. So now we can just put the head on. Just check to make sure there's nothing on it. Now we can put the 5 bolts in. This didn't come with the proper washers, so I'm going to go and find some washers because it just come with little copper ones. If you don't use washers when you're using the dome head nuts, these threads come through the top of the dome, so it's best to find some washers. So I've just put 2 of them on. 2 of them's the same fatness as a DTR washer. Just they're the ones that were on. There's 1 of them on each. Just copper washers. So we're going to put the 5 dome head nut bolts on now. Just tighten them in a sequence. Tighten that one, then tighten that one, then tighten that one, then that one, then that one. And this one, this one, this one. Don't just tighten one, then the other, then the other. So you warp your head. Just crisscross it about a bit. That's the 5 head bolts tightened now. Just push this bush on the end of the power valve. Just make sure it's in right first. Just feel up the exhaust. Feel this flush. It's flush, it's in that position. Just push that in. Just push it over. Make sure the orange seal's in. Keep your power valve in that position. Like the mistake the other person's made. Spun that all the way around because it just would go 360 degrees round, and then they put the black cap on, and that's how it's been upside down, but that's alright now. We've still got this. I can't find the end cap from nowhere. That's the end cap that was on it. I can't find an end cap nowhere. Just push that one back in. That's how it was in. So this big screw was just flush round it, keeping it in, sort of thing. So screw that in as well. So that's the end cap on. Now I'm going to put the reeds in the inlet in. That's the Athena reed gasket as well. If you can remember when I stripped it, it had reeds in what didn't have the stoppers on there. You know, like white reeds, like race reeds, I think they were. Don't know if they meant to not have that on the race reeds or not, but I'm putting these ones in. It's a tight fit lifting this engine at the bike fully. That's why I'm putting these screws on now. Normally you've got bolts what you can get into from the side, but with these you can only get in through down there. And then torque screws, got to have the proper end to get into them. So we'll put these 4 screws in the inlet. And that's everything tightened up now on the inlet. The engine's all ready. Now it's just going to go into there. I've got the subframe back in at the bottom. but it isn't tightened in at the top. So we've got from there to there, this movement to get the engine into that gap. So hopefully it'll get in there. This is a nightmare to get out, but this cradle goes right the way up. If you can see it moving there, put it back a bit. Can't really tell, but the cradle goes right up. But we'll get the engine in. I'm going to lift the engine in, get the swinging arm bolt through. Then the engine's secured in by the swinging arm bolt. Then I'll push the cradle up, tighten everything up. That's the engine in. It's not insecure. Just put it in, then pulled that cradle there over. Just need the bolts, that cradle bolt down there tightened up. That one on the other side. And there's the swing arm bolt tap through, at least through the back of the engine. I'm going to put some grease on there now and see if it taps through. Hopefully it does. That's the swinging arm bolt through now. Just needs tightened up on this end. And after all the engine's secured, you've got to take all this back subframe off just to get in there to get to the carb. It's rather hard to work on. Now I'm going to put the power valve end cap onto there. Just going to check these cables. That's just on measuring them from nipple to nipple. And you can see this left one, see the short one. This one goes on the left side. The short one goes on the left and the long on the right. So in there, into there, the short one will go on this side and the long one will go on this side. That's the case on. Just don't tighten them on too tight, because you're only tightening an alley and they're only 8 millis. Make sure your power valve's in the right position, because that's what fits over that square bit what was on wrong last time. Like I see, I've already probably said in the video, but that was spin all the way around. So if you've ever done your bike and you take it out, it's running wrong, it's worth just looking up the exhaust when you turn your key to see if it's all flush. And if it's not flush, you know you've muddled that up by mistake. But I'm just feeling up the exhaust now, it's all flush. So when it fits on, that should fit up with that circle up there. That means it's fully open. So there it fits like that, that's fully open. If you were to turn your key and not start the engine up, that'll be fully open there. Like when I feel up the exhaust. I don't know if you can see, I'll try and get up. It's flush. That's with the power valve like that. That's it fully open. When you start your bike, it drops back like that. Now when you rev it, it opens up like that. It's full. That's full anyway. Right, we'll get the cables on. That's the short cable in. It's not secure at the top. It's just I was going to show on this. When you get that nipple in, push that nipple up behind that. It's no easier, it's just I've got the phone in my hand. And that's how you have it. See how your nipple's pulled all the way up. Just some I've seen the nipple's been down here, or the nipple's been down here. See every nipple there, this other nipple will slide into the groove and it'll be staying here. And that's the cables on. Short side, long side. Just when I pull the power valve, it's only going down to there. And it's stopping, it should be going further down. It's stopping there. I think it's that end cap on the other side. I'm going to have a look. I think it's the end cap hit my Allen key bolt. So we're going to take that end cap off. That's the end cap, I've got it off. And that's what I think the Allen key's in. You can see to the bottom left. But we'll show up if it's that. Right. Let's just see if that. And it's that. So the power valve was only going to there before. With that end cap on, it's supposed to go right down to there. And when it's fully open, it's there. So we need an end cap on. So I think what I'm going to have to do, because it's late, I kind of text him now, I'm going to have to pin the power valve, leave the power valve motor unplugged until he gets a new end cap, because that power valve isn't turning with that end cap hitting that screw. That just hitting it. So I'm glad I spotted that before I rigged all the servo motor up and that. So we need an end cap. Everything's to put back on. Put the engines in. So I'm just gonna finish this video here because there's still loads to do. I've got to rebuild the cob. Just waiting for 2 jets coming. And I'll have to take all this back end off. It'd come with one of them spongy black air filters, whatever it is. Ram air filter they're called or something. Don't know where it's at. It's lying about somewhere. But I've got to put an original one on. We'll check the radiator when it's all built up. I've got to check the radiator to check for any coolant leaks. But a lot of gaskets were leaking. But the radiator, looking at it, is, I don't know, I've had worse ones where I've had ones about the same. Rolled dints and everything. So I'll stop this video now. So thanks for watching. Like I say, next video is carb rebuild. Put my radiator on, wind all the cables up, the fairing, the clocks on, the tank on, the exhaust on, and we first start.